Well, hello there. How are you all, my friends? Let's go right into things. What you're watching here is you're watching a live video cam feed from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's where we root from, the South Carolina. My brother doesn't live too far from there, one of them, so I wanted to start the conversation out about Irene. It's plodding along the east coast, excuse me, along its course. There has been some loss of life along the way, from what I understand, and there has been some damage. I've seen lots of poles snapped in half, lots of tree damage. Now, I watched this cam. I have not talked to him in a couple of days. I suppose he was preparing his home. You see the people walking around and everything. It looks pretty dry. You know, everybody's out checking things out. It's not packed or anything like that, but you see activity going on. Now, when I watched it last night, it was as the storm moved through. Boy, it got real dark along here, and they did get a whole lot of rain. It looked like these waves came up to about right here, right about in here. They were much farther in than now, so it's past this area right here. So let's check this one out, where we're not actually going to be able to. But this is the Washington cam, as you can see. Irene blew out the feed from it or something. Pardon. But you can see they're getting really wet. There's a lot of wind. It's moving up North Carolina, Virginia area. And the upper level of the air, unless it begins to peter out a little bit, if you got like a 9-10 story building or something, as you get higher in the elevation, it could get harder winds. It might be harder on those kind of structure. I haven't heard of too much of a whole bunch of windows blowing out or anything. And then they're watching their surge. They're expecting some surge as it moves along. I believe the eye is pretty well touched land, and I think I just heard that it was going to curve back out somewhat out to sea. So let's just keep an eye on it and see what it's going to do. But you can see this is well, it's definitely a different story, where they probably got a little bit lucky right here. I really think they did. I'll have to check with my uncle. He also lives down there in Georgetown, and that's a little bit farther from Myrtle Beach than where my brother's at. But he's usually a little more up on the entire state, and he'll know of places that have damage that maybe they don't report. So there we go on Irene, moving along the east coast. Well, let's see what we've done here. This is all our activity was in the last 24 hours, and we did get last night, well, actually early this morning, the 4.6 quake in Central California, and they did also issue a tsunami alert for some reason with the 4.6. If you can see your report and your report time and everything, and that all matches up. So that's from this same event right here. And then we go over to here, and you can see that New York 2.9, it's not very big, but it's in New York. They're rare. They're pretty rare in New York. And you get a 3.0 in southern Quebec in Canada. Now this is just the last 24 hours. Looky right here. Aruba. You hardly ever hear them of an earthquake. But even the Aruban region had a 4.6. And then you have these tsunami statements that are left over from the Peruvian 7.0. And you can come way down to the southern part, and you see that Argentina had a 4.8. And you go way over here to no man's land, and you get a 4.8 in the South Sandwich Island region. We'll go look around over here in South African region. They're looking pretty stable. Move all the way up and look around Sudan, Central Africa. And this big, large land mass appears to usually be pretty stable most of the time. So they seem to have continued that. Iran, they have got into the action with a 4.4 on Friday. We're going to come over here, get into the ring of fire over here. The Chinese, like they are fairly stable. Now this up here, this was for Mongolia, Central Mongolia, at 5.4. And as you can see, all the way over here, we're in Japan, and they got 4s. That's normal. Well, it's not normal, but it's what they're always getting minimum in the 4s. There's a Friday 4.8. There's a 4.5 Saturday today, and a 4.6 today. And we'll follow that ring down all the way around here in a minute. You can see they get their storms too. They've got Tropical Storm Talas, and then they've got Typhoon Namnadal. So, and then there's a 4.9 in the Mariana Islands region, as well as 5.2. You see all these little icons here are earthquakes. Or not earthquakes, but volcanoes. So the earthquakes and the volcanoes go hand in hand. Thank goodness they're not all blowing off all over the world right at this moment. We may have some volcanic activity, but they're not in full-blown blowout, thank goodness. Then you have a 5.2 in Vanuatu, and a 5.1 in Fiji. You have some lesser magnitudes of 4.8 Vanuatu. Oh, excuse me, that's a 4.5. New Zealand looks pretty quiet at this time. Australia Australia, my friend down there, you look like you're doing okay at the moment. We're just going to take her around, see what Alaska's doing. Now what they're doing is a 3.1 on Friday, and a 3.2, and a 4.0. So I'm going to change this. We're just going to look and scan, and that was for today, all this stuff that we just looked at. So we're going to go ahead and update that, and we're going to change it to everything in the last week. You can see how littered everything is whenever you look at it over the span of a week now. I won't need to say a whole lot. And there's your 7 in Peru. Get over here to the hot spots, and you can see just how much a week takes a toll. See? Now these are all 5s. The yellows are the 5s. You can see this whole ridge there. All those 5s. You come upward. You see the trail of 5s. Climbing and climbing, finding their way all the way up. So the frequency of the 5s was kind of stopping about here usually, and then they ended up getting the 7s a while back. A pair of 7s up here in Alaska. But we used to think the 5s kept over here, never made it over here. But as we knew, eventually action was coming our way. They made it over here, and we better get ready for more, because we know there's going to be more. Now I'd like to ask a favor. Well, first of all, this is the radiation of the xenon that still is emitted from Fukushima. It's been 5 months now, and it's still making its way all the way over here from the other side of the world. You can see the color level indication and the chart up here to let you know where you're at on strength. You can see we're in the reddish area up here. Whenever it comes out originally, you got plenty of gold, plenty of this gold, and you can see it gets all the way over here to this little island right around here, and it's still gold. So it hasn't dissipated before it reaches. There you can see the gold right here. You can see the gold right in here. The gold goes real close to the west coast of California. So we got something of that level. Whether they want to tell that it's a acceptable level for your body to tolerate, or the food chain sources, they can tell anything they want. Now, I'm just showing you, this model represents the levels that are in the air, that have traveled all the way across the water, and are being blown upon the land that we inhale and we absorb. So on that note, I have a little different thought on this matter now. I have a nephew. He's 25 years old. Good sized, strapping young man, about 6'5", 275. Never smoked, never drank. Football player, received scholarship offers, turned him down to pursue his options in a different degree of what he really wanted to do. He has been diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. I would ask you all if you could spare a minute or two to say a prayer for him. His name is Andrew. He started some chemo, and we'll see where we go from there. But I can certainly use the extra prayers for my nephew. Actually, he's my great nephew. So, I have thoughts, different ones than before. I was already had an idea of what I believed. But I know he wasn't diagnosed with this illness pre-March 11th Fukushima. And I know the human body can have elements in it that lay dormant for your whole lifetime and then all of a sudden switch on. Maybe this is the element that switched on something dormant. I don't know. But what I do know is that he was never told that anything like this was wrong with him until after March 11th, Japan, Fukushima release, which has been allowed to go on 5 consecutive months, of which I heard they said maybe by the end of the year they may have this thing completely under control. And then they also have their alternate report that says everything's under control right now. So there we are on that. And I would like to go into this now. When we talk about alien invasion, return of the Anunnaki, return of Nibiru, etc. When you look back at history and you want to know who developed the systems, who developed the teachings, who developed societies and civilizations, you've already been told. The information in this form wasn't available, but it is now. And so you need to know. And once you know, you can see how we've been screwed into the type of civilization that we have now. Now, this is from the book of Enoch. Enoch was related to Noah. Anytime Noah, or the Bible speaks about Enoch, he is regarded very, very highly because he is one of the most respected and truthful and trusted seers and messengers. Let's take a listen.
Verse 6. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Simjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swore they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200, who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders: Sanbazaz, their leader, Aragula, Ramiel, Kokarlu, Tandil, Ramu, Daniel, Ezekiel, Berekajul, Asael, Armaros, Paterel, Hananel, Zach, Lanel, Samsatiel, Satarel, Turel, Jomje, Sariel. These are their chiefs of tens. Chapter 7. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. And they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms, and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds, and beasts, and reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Simjaza taught enchantments, and earth cuttings, Armaros, the resolving of enchantments, Berekajul, taught astrology, Kokabah, the constellations, Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds, Arakiel, the signs of the earth, Shamsiel, the signs of the sun, and Sariel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. Chapter 9. And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said one to another, The earth made without inhabitant cries the voice of their cries up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make their suit, saying, Bring our cause before the Most High. And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and God of the ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages, and thy name holy and glorious and blessed unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou. And all things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And Simjaza, to whom thou hast given authority to bear rule over his associates. And they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. And now, behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their limitations have ascended, and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. and thou knowest all things before they come to pass, and thou seest these things, and thou dost suffer them, and thou dost not say to us what we are to do to them in regard to these. Chapter 10. Then said the Most High, the Holy and Great One spake, and sent Uriel to the son of Lamech, and said to him, Go to Noah, and tell him, in my name hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it. And now instruct him that he may escape, and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. And again the Lord said to Raphael, Bind Azazel, hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening of the desert, which is in the Dale, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire, and heal the earth which the angels have corrupted, and proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague, and that all the children of men may not perish, through all the secret things that the watchers have disclosed, and have taught their sons. And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. And Gabriel, said the Lord, proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers from amongst men, and cause them to go forth. Send them one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle. For length of days shall they not have, and no request that they make of thee shall be granted unto their fathers on their behalf. For they hope to live in eternal life, and that each one of them will live 500 years. And the Lord said unto Michael, Go, bind Simjaza and his associates who have united themselves with women, so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their judgment and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. In those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, and to the torment and the prison in which they shall be confined forever. And whosoever shall be condemned and destroyed will from thenceforth be bound together with them to the end of all generations, and destroy all the spirits of the reprobate and the children of the watchers, the Nephilim, because they have wronged mankind. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end, and let the plant of righteousness and truth appear, and it shall prove a blessing. The works of righteousness and truth shall be planted in truth and joy forevermore. And then shall all the righteous escape, and shall live till they beget thousands of children, and all the days of their youth and their old age shall they complete in peace. And then shall the whole earth...
Now that is a series. That was part 2 of 7. If you, let's go back here.
In 500 years.
This little site here, eternalword.org, that's a nice little site. You can go there and you can listen to this whole thing, all 7 parts. And this just described to you how they came down here and how they started doing everything and worked us into the type of a civilization doing the things that their way, not the way it was originally designed for us, but their way. And that's what we've been trapped into ever since, their way. and it filters down from the top of their pyramid down to the bottom of where we're at. So you go up to the top, you got your Illuminati, you got your Rothschilds and stuff, and you got your Queen of England and all her minions way at the top. But these guys, they're the ones that sit even above them, that tell them what to do. And then even this little group of guys, hey, they're alleged to one guy. So the devil's at the very tip of the pyramid. These guys are just barely below him, alleged to him. And then everything else below them is alleged to these guys and their boss. So you can finish this out, and it gets real descriptive about space, and about how the things that he saw out there and how they interact with this planet. He'll also describe unto you hell. Well, I urge you to go and educate yourself, because this is knowledge that you haven't been known, and now you have an opportunity to know it. And when you do, you can understand things better. So let's go over here now to this. And I've been toying with this thing here, and I find this real interesting. If you go to www.google.com/sky and you come up here and you type in Mercury and search for it, you'll find this little icon here that says this is Mercury. Drag it over to the right slightly to where you can still see it in your screen, and then come over here and click this button over here. It says infrared, and look what happens. Now, isn't that nice? I've been thinking quite about this. Why do I need infrared if Comet Elenin is just a comet? Now, we've mentioned Dwarf, and I've always thought that we're going to get it all. See? No infrared. Our eyes can't see it. Infrared, and then it's visible. But I've always had the thinking that we're going to get it all. We're going to get Comet Elenin, and then following that up, we're going to get a dwarf star that's going to also have a planet system with it, Nibiru. And then we've seen the pictures of what looks to be like intelligently controlled objects following all that. So I don't believe any of it is really totally fake. I believe the things that man does interlace with the things that are ordained and mandated by God, because His intelligence and the way that He works is beyond our capacity to understand the complexity of the hows and the whys. He doesn't have time to sit there and explain what He's doing all the time, how and why it works. But I think Elenin is just the lead-in to get our attention. And this thing, I believe is going to be the hell wrecker right here. Because if it were a comet, you know, we've not been told you have to look at a comet in infrared. At least not this one. Not Elenin. a dwarf star, we already know we have to look at them in different spectrums of light in order to be able to see them. I mean, is that not what we're doing right now here? Infrared. Huh. Very strange. What do you guys think? You think it's a manipulation? That they just made this thing on here to fool us or something? That would explain why you don't see anything whenever you're looking for something. Because we can't see this thing. We're getting to where we can see Elenin now, but not this thing apparently. So, stuff's behind it a little bit farther also. But apparently we can't see that right now. But this is what we are seeing now. Nothing. And then change to infrared. That is very interesting to me. I'm going to give this a lot more thought. Not go wild on it though, because we're moving into September and that's going to be a big month. I think that's pretty well updated us on some things. I just want everyone to realize, you know, it is a good thing to keep an eye on this radiation, because you can go to the radiation network and you can look at the monitoring system and you can read all the numbers you want to, but you know, who is to say? The proof is in the pudding. If there's an uptick in cancer rate rise, you know, people getting tumors and stuff, well, it's going to take a while before they even put that out. So that's the way a slow kill works, in the way that my way of thinking when I first started thinking about radiation poisoning possibly hitting the US was that it would take a while, you know, and then you would see people being diagnosed and tumors and cancer rate going up. I didn't think that you'd just see people just starting to bleed out their ears and their nose and their mouth and their eyes and everything and just falling over dead. That would be way too obvious. See, like in my nephew's case, or anybody's case, what it's doing is it's stopping you from living. It's shaving years off your life. That's it. That's the way it is in anything, whether you've had it activated or accelerated because of absorbing radiation or not. You know, it stops you from achieving the longevity that you were designed to live into. So, I hope everybody along the coast has somewhere to go out of the way if you're in a dangerous area. It is a big evacuation. I've heard over 2 million people. There's loss of powers in some places, everything. Well, it's not a good time. It could have been a worse storm, but it's bad enough as it has turned out to be. So I pray for all these people, and I pray for all of us as we move closer to September. I'll give y'all some more updates whenever I can find them and let you know what's going to happen. But there's going to be more earthquaking in the US, and we still have the New Madrid fault to worry about, and there's going to be more flooding. So I send all my prayers to each and every one of you. I keep you in my heart. I'll talk to you soon. And if you noticed in the last few days, when you look up at night, the sky, at least in Oklahoma, has been very, very dark black, of where stars were not even visible hardly. Last night I couldn't see any stars at all, except the one big glowing giant one in the east. So keep looking up, because something's up there.